Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome everyone. I'm Chatty, this is my channel Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting very madly to you about everything that I have read in June. It has been a while, the brain might be rusty, but I really enjoyed my books, so I want to tell you what thoughts I had about them, even if I am a little bit sludgy on the details because it is currently August now, so it's been a while since these books were read. Anyway, without any more waffle, I'm going to do my little gimmick because it's a long video, and with my long videos I just keep the camera rolling and we see what happens, because that way I don't need to edit, which is very helpful. So cheers everyone. Clink 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 clink. So if you want to know a little bit more about these books, I will put all of the Storygraph links in the description box, so you can go and have a little peruse and also see other people's opinions as well. So the first book that I read in June was Dawnsharde by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella and it is part of the Stormlight Archive. So it comes in, it's officially book 3.5, so it comes in after Oathbringer, which I read in May. And I pretty much finished Oathbringer and then just picked up Dawnsharde straight away because I was in the Stormlight vibe and I was having a wonderful time. I just reread Oathbringer finally, and I have never read Dawnsharde, so I was very keen to see what was going to be happening. I knew the character we were focusing on, but other than that I didn't really know what to expect, and I was really keen to read about her again. I've enjoyed, she is a character from the interludes that we meet, and I'm not going to say any more in case it spoils it, but I thought that this was a really fun read. It was really nice actually, because Stormlight is so epic, to just be having it that was focusing on one small moment and cast of characters, so it was really fun. I really enjoy the interludes. I do really enjoy the interludes. So in between the main story, you go to different parts of the world and kind of see some random characters, and some of the bit is just kind of a little bit more fleshing out, and some of it is relevant to the bigger plot. So within this book we got to meet some of our favourite extra characters from Bridge 4. We've got a slight more expansion on some of their sort of stories within and the magic and their arcs, and you also got to get back in touch with kind of this character and kind of where she is after there's been certain events that have happened in her life. And we also have some new magic, new further parts of the world that are going on in here. We don't know what this is going to look like when it comes into play with the bigger story. It was really interesting, and I loved how the kind of the merchant side of the world was explored. It was to do with compromise, it was to do with sort of bargaining and working things out for both parties, and honest dealing, and I appreciated all of that. I also thought there was some fantastic disability representation in here as well. So yeah, I just had a great time with this book. I then continued reading Kòkú Àkànbí and the Heart of Midnight, which is a middle grade fantasy book by Marie Monteiro Adebisi. And we have a beautiful illustration by Simone Douglas on the front. We have three main characters, and they are all have fantastic African hairstyles, and there is some kind of sort of tribal sort of painting and styling going on in here, which kind of links to the kind of magic world part of this book, which is really cool. Simone Douglas also illustrated the Lizzie and Belle mysteries, which I really adore. So this book I had started in May and just kind of put on hold for a little bit whilst I was in the right zone for Stormlight, and then came back to it afterwards. I did have a really good time with this. I think there's some fantastic ideas. I really enjoyed the world building. So we have this map here. This is the map of Olori, which is the world that we come into, with all of the different sections shown in here for the different gods. I don't know how much is based on African folklore and how much has been invented by the author. I definitely do want to explore sort of more African folklore so I can see, because I really enjoy knowing which bit is the lore and which bit is kind of the embellishment of the author. I find that really fun. But you did get a sense of kind of like all the different tribes and the different things that they do. I think it's going to be fun to continue kind of with this within this world. I thought that was lots of fun. This has also got disability representation in here, and I thought that was done really, really well. I enjoyed the characters. It didn't quite hit for some, as well as some other books I've read, in kind of terms of their found family and kind of the bond that they have. I'm hoping that kind of deepens and I get that emotional kind of impact. But I did enjoy sort of, you know, there was a lot in here that I did enjoy. The language, I enjoyed the realm of, what did they call it? There's a portal here. The Jujuland portal. I did enjoy going to Jujuland, and there's a lot of really fun things in there as well. There were some twists in here that I didn't see. There were some explanations that I really enjoyed, and I kind of enjoyed the process of it all. There were some things that I think lost me slightly, like I didn't quite see how the dots connected, but I do want to continue the series, so I'll see if that kind of comes a bit clearer in the next book. So yeah, it was a fun time. Not a favourite, but it was a really fun time. I then completely different, break away from fantasy. I read a book that I've been really looking forward to reading and had just very much felt it was going to be a June book, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. I've had this copy for a long time and have been waiting for the perfect moment. I have read Emma previously, but not my own copy, and not for a really long time. I think it was the Austen book that I hadn't read for ages, and I love Emma. I don't know how many times I've reread Emma, but there's definitely a gap, and I just love all the Society of Manners. I love how all the characters interact. I love all the comedy. I love seeing Emma's character growth and character change. I just love all this like small village, like it's almost like their own little kingdom, like everything else kind of exists outside of it. I just find it so fun. And yes, every single time I read this, I get so annoyed with Emma at the beginning of the book, and her arrogance, her classism, and then I just love seeing it change as she learns more about herself and about the other people and who she values and what she values. And I just think it's done so well, and there's just so much love here, and there's just so much friendship, and there's just such a neighbourly sense in this book, and I just find it really delightful, and I just find it hilarious. It is just so, I just find this so funny. I think there were things before that I didn't find quite, when I previously read it, I was a lot younger, and I think certain comic elements I think just went over my head a little bit. But Emma's father, and just how much of a hypochondriac he is, and just all of his worries, and also just seeing how Emma just sees just her absolute love for her dad, and how she cannot comprehend how she could ever leave him because of how it would completely, I don't know if he'd get over it, basically. Like, that would just be too much of a change in his life. He does just rely a lot. He needs a lot of reassurance. He's very anxious. But he very much cares for her, and you can see that. So it's I didn't think I appreciated all of that as much when I read it before. I did also watch I think it was 2020 film. I can't remember the name of any of the people in it, apart from Miranda Hart plays Miss Bates, which I just thought was genius casting. And Bill Nighy plays the dad, which I wasn't sure about, but it was done brilliantly. I think the casting of that film was fantastic. I have watched all apart from the 1970s BBC drama version of Emma. I loved Ramona Gari as Emma, and I think again, just it being that TV series, it gave it a little bit more time to kind of breathe in terms of like different aspects of the book. I'd love to have rewatched that again, but I couldn't. But first time watching the new film, the latest film, the 2021, the humor they use in that was just so fantastic. The visual humor they use, where they literally have, so Emma's hypochondriac father is always worrying about a draft. He's like, do you feel a draft? Do you feel, just in the middle of taking tea, suddenly just stop the conversation, let us just discuss, is there a draft? Is there a draft, anyone? And then calls in. So you have these, it just shows, it's not mentioned, but it just shows how ridiculous the jobs of servants are, and just what on earth must they think of their jobs. You've got these footmen in full, you know, posh uniform, literally standing and listening to other people's tea chat, so that at any moment when Mr. Woodhouse decides there's a draft, they pick up a screen, move it forward in sort of almost like a little marching but mincing style, and drop it in front of him and then move out the way again. And it's just such a massive interruption to the chat that's going on. It's just hilarious. I just find it so funny. And all of that was done, just all of the elaborateness, all of the humour, I just thought worked really, really well. Miranda Hart as Miss Bates just trying to talk to Emma in church and just getting overexcited and ending up shouting out her name, which is highly embarrassing but really funny. Just all of those little details, I just appreciated that. And I think that's why I do just love, apart from when they decide to get too modern, when it's not meant to be. If you're going to do a modern adaptation, do a modern adaptation. I mean, Clueless, we know it's amazing. But generally, I love seeing Austen adaptations, because it, just like Shakespeare, you get something from it. You see the way someone else sees the story, and there's something in that story that speaks to them, and that's the bit they want to pull out. And with this particular one, it was the humour, and I just loved it. Just the ridiculousness of it all. I just loved it. So it was delightful to read this and then watch the film. So I was like, why have I not read it in such a long time? It was so joyful. I definitely do want to be rereading my Austen a lot more, because it was just nice. It was just, it was just a joyful moment. It really was. It was just so relaxing and refreshing, and I had the best time. So one of the things that I was doing when I did my June TBR was try and pin down the mood of what I wanted to read. I had certain books that I wanted to read and get through. And then I was like, I don't know, there's just so many books that I would like to read, and I can't work out what sort of mood I'm in. So I had a wonderful time with this video, which I shall put here. So you can go and see that. Hopefully it's now up. I think it's going to be in 2 parts. So if you are keen to know the outcome of what book I ended up choosing to read from that video, then please go and watch that, because I'm now going to talk about the books that I had in that video. So there you go. If you don't want to be spoiled, it's not a major spoiler, but just thought I'd give you the option. Okay, so the book I felt most in the mood for was Solitaire by Alice Oseman. This is a YA contemporary. Alice Oseman is most well known for the Heartstopper graphic novels, which are very cosy. It's very clear at the beginning of this book, she specifically states this is not like Heartstopper. This is a book that explores mental health. So our protagonist, Tori, is the sister of Charlie, who is a protagonist in the Heartstopper books. And this is sort of her story and what's going on with her. So we're inside her head. We're seeing life the way she sees it, and she basically feels quite numb to a lot of things. And it just is very clear as you read this book that she's depressed. She's depressed, but no one seems to know that she's depressed. So it's quite hard reading about how the adults treat her in this book. No one's going out of their way to be malicious and mean, but it's that sort of lack of understanding. Like, they don't understand why she doesn't seem to have a huge amount of motivation, why she's just trudging through life, why she hasn't got a lot of energy, why she's not wanting to do things like that. It doesn't become clear to anyone. It's also really heartbreaking just seeing how her and her mum are in this. Like, you're reading this and you're just like, you just need a parent to hug you. And her dad seems more approachable than her mum. I don't know what the deal is between Tori and her mum. There just seems to be a bit of, I don't know whether it's a clash of characters. I don't know if her mum is going through some mental health stuff as well, but they just do not get each other at all. And I feel quite strongly that as a grown-up, as a parent, you absolutely need to make sure your needs are met, but through other people who aren't your children. When you're in that situation, you are the parent to that child, and you need to be making sure that child is okay. So whatever the deal is between Tori and her mum, I just feel that if her mum's got stuff going on, she needs to be having that dealt with so that she has enough energy to be able to recognize what's happening with Tori, because Tori definitely needs something. Or her dad might want to sort of mediate and kind of say, hey, I think your mum's going through some stuff, so talk to me. This is how your mum is feeling. I noticed you and your mum don't, get on at the moment. Shall we try and deal with this? There's like, there could be some better parenting going on in here, and I know that's the way it's supposed to be. Sorry, I got interrupted again and I can't remember my train of thought. Yeah, talking about the parents, I can't remember where I left it, but feeling sorry for Tori and all the things that she's going through. This book also explores friendship as well, and I think it's done in a really healthy way. It explores, Alice Oseman's just so good at relationships. She's just so good at thinking about the communication of relationships and how people feel, how they feel, and it just feels really natural, and it just gives me all the warm fuzzies in terms of that. But this book was quite hard hitting at times, and it did feel, do check the trigger warnings. Trigger warnings are in the story graph, so do have a look at that, and there were definitely moments where it felt sad. So yeah, have a look at all of that. There is a plot to this where Tori is trying to solve this sort of mystery of kind of what's happening. Just have a look at the synopsis. So there is like a plot thing going on as well, but for me, I really love like all the themes and things that is explored, and just hanging with these characters and getting to know a little bit more about them, and I had a great time reading this. Now, also in that video, I was also intrigued by another book, and I was feeling very strongly. So this is a book that came in at second place, and that is Typhoon by Quasia Shiraz. So this is sort of, it's got two timelines, so it's sort of partly historical fiction, partly contemporary. It's set in a small village in Pakistan, and it very much has sort of like a family drama saga feel to it, and it was very compelling. Like, I wanted to find out like the way it was written and how things happened. It definitely pulled me in to want to know what's going on and what's happening in the story. Did I enjoy it? Aspects. It's not a book that's for me. It's not my normal genre. I'm glad I read it because it was fun to do something different, and I definitely enjoyed kind of the cultural aspect in this small village. I definitely enjoyed the gossipy village people. The sort of the secondary characters women, some married, some not, and continuing to live their lives the best way that they can. I was very interested in that. I was intrigued by kind of the social commentary in the village and people standing in the village and what everyone thought of each other in the village. I found that all very fascinating. The story does kind of feature around one stranger that kind of comes into the village, and then the thought of her then coming back like 20 years later, 20 or 30 years later, I can't remember what it is now. But the way it was done was all very intriguing. Unfortunately, kind of like what kind of came out of it felt slightly not as exciting as I was hoping, and sort of like I didn't quite understand why these things happened or what was the symbol of it, or it just felt very overly dramatic. It was written in 2002, so over 20 years ago. So I don't know if feminism was at a different point then to where it is now. There were certain aspects that I'm very aware that I'm looking at this from a Western viewpoint. So I know there's certain things that are culturally different. Sorry, I keep being hit on the head by this. This is a Shelterbox book, so the information from Shelterbox keeps slipping out the book and hitting me on the head. Where was I? Yes. So it was a bit like a fascinating exploration of that, and I did think there were some interesting points, but I think for me there was a certain way I would have preferred things to have gone, but I don't know if at the time and for certain readers this was kind of like a powerful thing to have explored. It has definitely got the kind of a melodrama feel to it, and I kind of enjoyed it in that I'm enjoying the messy drama, but then at other points it's like, am I supposed to be having an emotional connection? Because I really don't. I'm finding it a little bit too funny to get an emotional connection. And I think there was a lot of dramatic reactions that could have easily been solved if people just spoke to each other. So I found that a little bit hard. And there were some storylines that I'm like, where's this come from? I don't, how have we got to this point? It doesn't quite make sense in my head. But I don't know if that was the point of the book, or if I just was missing something, or if that's just the author just enjoying living in this very dramatic, to the point of nearly hysterical kind of like passion angst level that people in here had for some of it. It sort of discussed a little bit about 3 women being looked at in this book. We definitely looked at 2 of them. The other one wasn't explored as much, I don't think. And it was, again, I just feel communication is just such a good thing. I know that wasn't the point of the book, but it would have been helpful. I'm going to go into spoilers now. So if you want to read this book and you don't want to hear spoilers, then toddle off. I've got time jumps, so skip ahead as you would. I can't remember the names, but there is one character in this book who is a widow. She didn't have a happy marriage. She's now inherited this farm. She's got a son. She's got a sister. She's got friends. She's kind of a high-ish standing, but holds herself aloof from her neighbours. But she's got some pressure to kind of marry, and she's adamant that she doesn't want to. And to start off with, it makes a lot of sense in terms to like her social standing. Like, if she marries, she then is at the beck and call of her husband, whereas at the moment she has got a lot of freedom. So I was like, fair play, you do you, enjoy your life. Whereas actually it kind of came out that she was raped when she was younger, and then sees herself as broken and unworthy of love because of her past. And the healing kind of comes from her having a conversation, and it's I like the idea of it being an older romance. So 20 years ago, she was proposed to, turned this guy down, and then another 20 years later, he proposes again, and they have a chat. And there was, I'd say, definitely bruised male ego in here that, again, I think is good to look at, and again, would have been good to talk about. But I get the cultural societal reflection, I suppose, of it. But essentially, he's like the bigger person because he tells her that's not her fault, that doesn't make her broken, and then they are going to get married. And I just felt that that kind of takes away her agency. That's kind of something she should have come to by herself to give it the kind of impact I would like. But I did appreciate like the older romance style of it. But that was my thoughts on that one. The interesting viewing of how it's seen through Western culture's eyes. The big thing that happens is a husband is caught cheating with this glamorous stranger that has come to the village, and it turns out that she's actually his first wife. They were very young, they separated, lost contact with each other. She's randomly turned up back in this village because she's visiting someone. They see each other, they're excited to see each other, they sneak off to see each other. His new wife, he's worried and wants to protect her and wants to break the news to her that he's got a first wife at some other point, but they get caught by her. So it's very slut shaming. But also it's this concept of it's not cheating because they're married, and then suddenly it's kind of turned on its head, that she's not seen as a whore, she's seen as perfectly valid. What they've done seems perfectly valid. It's just maybe you should have spoken to your second wife to have avoided all the drama. But from a Western point of view, if you've separated, you're no longer in a relationship, because I suppose we're looking at this through a monogamous lens. Either way, all partners involved need to know what's going on for it to be healthy communication and a healthy relationship. But essentially, from my perspective, if you've separated, that relationship has now finished. If you were to restart that again, you would need to talk to the person you are currently with and tell them, because otherwise that is cheating. Because you are doing something outside of your relationship with that person. So it was just really fascinating to see how the tables turned in terms of everyone in the village and how they judge someone. But actually, in my head, I'm like, but that still hasn't changed anything, because they still have betrayed and hurt someone through their actions of doing that before telling that person. I just found that interesting. It was all, and the kind of the fallout is there's other characters and different kind of things that kind of come out from that, and different relationships that are changed and broken. And this is a companion novel. There is a book before it and there is a book after it set in the same village, and there are reoccurring characters, but it doesn't really follow a plot. So I did find it strange how suddenly we focused on some of the random characters, but that is to clarify these were characters in a different book. So that kind of made more sense when I read about that afterwards. Anyway, it was interesting. It's not my, like I said, I'm not into the drama saga. It makes me roll my eyes and I'm like, just please talk to each other. But in terms of village gossips, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And it was very compelling. The way it was structured made me want to keep reading to find out. Next book I have to talk about is Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales. This is the second book in the Pages and Co series by Anna James, and it is a middle grade portal fantasy. So Buddy read this with Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot, and Talia from Bandana Book Mum, and Stacey. And sorry, just run back up and down the stairs. I realise I'm now quite out of breath. It's like, why am I breathing weird? So yes, we were chatting in my Discord middle grade mad chat about this one. This was a lot of fun. I do enjoy the characters. I love all the book kind of lore and exploration in here. It was very fun sort of going through the fairy tales and seeing all the different things in those. There were some great characters in the fairy tales. Some standouts being Mummy Bear and of course Rapunzel. There was a moment in here with a load of princes trying to win Rapunzel's hand, and I just absolutely cracked up when one of them shouted, "I've got a castle, it's really big." Just made me laugh. And Rapunzel was awesome, letting them know that she actually does not need to marry anyone. Thank you very much. I think for me, this book was kind of broken up into a few different things. You're very much kind of like in the regular world, talking about book politics and library politics within the book wandering community. There's exploration into a book of fairy tales, and that the second half it kind of is in that bit, and then the third bit is then when they come back from that and how that kind of pans out afterwards. So it was in a few segments, and I think I would have enjoyed it if they could have gone back in the books again and kind of explored a bit more than just the main plot, because I think that was just really fun, and I think we were only just kind of scratching the surface of where this could have gone with all those different things. There was some, again, bizarre adulting choices in this book. The characters ended up, for various different reasons, you understood the choices that they made. But at the time, it was like, this feels like a very big red flag going on here in what you are encouraging and suggesting be done. But we have a big political shift within this book. The head of the head librarian is changed, and the fallout is interesting. I found that bit a struggle because it gave me kind of suddenly like dystopia vibes, where you're fighting against a corrupt ruling, like everything that you've had before is going to be taken away from you. You're feeling downtrodden, and I was like, why is there no kind of pushback against this uprising, as you will? I felt the grown-ups could have been organising more rather than just waiting and see what happens, which seemed to be the general plan. And obviously our protagonist Tilly is kind of frustrated with that plan. She's not up for that plan, but she's told this is the best way forward. We want to keep you safe, yada, yada, yada. So I kind of can't blame her for running off because, again, interesting choices from some of the grown-ups in this book. I think the thing that frustrates, so generally I have a great time. The thing that sort of frustrates me is that when we get to the end and we have this climax, we don't get the fallout of that climax. I'm like, well, that's just happened. Is anyone going to question what we've all just seen here? Are we all okay with this? And we're just going to move on. Okay. We kind of go from the climax action ending, and then we're back in a cozy place talking about it, rather than seeing for ourselves, well, who takes over from who, what's the stipulations now in place, what's that. But I think that's me coming at it with an adult brain, because I love getting into the nitty gritty. I love exploring all those things. I love this kind of political aspect to it. But I guess that's not necessarily what the middle grade readers need. So I'm aware of that. So I'm just kind of letting it go and just having fun with the fun. So I'm hoping when I finish this one that those aspects were picked up in the subsequent books in this. Like, I feel that's the overarching feeling to the series, and we'll see if it gets resolved at the end. So there we go. I think this one, that the fun of going into the fairy tales, I think was very much enjoyed by everyone, and Rapunzel and Mummy Bear were generally appreciated by everyone who I was reading this book with. And we all had questions about some of the adulting choices in here. So it was very nice to be able to air with everyone in there. Am I crazy? Is it me? No, okay, good. We're all on the same page. Ba-dum-ching. Moving on. I finally finished listening to the Andy Serkis audiobook of The Lord of the Rings. I have finally finished listening to Return of the King. This was only available on Audible, so I managed to find a deal and listen to a bit of Audible. So I got this done. Some of this I did manage to do immersion reading. I am not usually one for immersion reading, but for this reread, I very much felt like I wanted to. I wanted to really take it in. There was moments I was really excited for coming up, and I was loving Andy Serkis' voice bringing this all to life. He's such a fantastic storyteller. The voices are just impeccable. The way he can just create emotion within those characters and sing as those characters, his range is just incredible. It's just wonderful storytelling. So I also wanted to sit with the book, and I did manage to get it to the right speed for me, so that was awesome. Also realised reading this very clearly, I love Tolkien when we are looking at the interaction between the characters and following the story. I'm not a fan of knowing what line of elf this is from. I am basically not here for the yarn on lore of dynasties past, of different races and the people before them and their legacies. That doesn't interest me. But once we're back on hobbits talking about pipeweed, I'm in. I'm fully in again and enjoying my time. It was really nice to see all of the hobbits and all of their different journeys that they go on and their strength, because they are so small and overlooked, and just how they can just do such big things, and just feeling the arc of where they were when they left the Shire in the first book and how they are when they return to the Shire and they've got a big thing to deal with on their return. I just thoroughly enjoyed all of that. And just the reunition of some of the characters was just so heartwarming. It was beautiful. So yes, I love Tolkien is at his best when he's talking about hobbits, is what I find. So highly enjoyed this. Was hoping to also rewatch the film, but I never got around to doing that at all. But it was great to finally hear it completed with Andy Serkis. I then have a random read that I just popped in here because I pulled this out of the library a while ago and really wanted to read it, and then had to take it back before I did. But this time I managed to read The Boy Who Fell from the Sky by Benjamin Dean. So this is a sci-fi by Benjamin Dean. I have only read his, it's a middle grade book. I've only read his two contemporary middle grade that have LGBTQ plus representation in them. This doesn't. We have got a minor character who is part of the LGBTQ plus community, but it doesn't really necessarily follow any kind of exploration or pride within that. It is a sci-fi story looking at, I suppose, humanity and prejudice and what we're told, and cover-ups, I suppose, and also relationships. This was really, and friendship. This was really fascinating. With those themes, but I also really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the friendship in here, and basically I finished the book and thought, that works so well. I can see where it's all going to go, and I feel very proud of all of the people in this book, the good ones anyway. But I want more, please. I very much feel there could be another book. It's not been advertised, it's not been sold as a series, but I really hope Benjamin Dean's brain is whirring away with all the stories and all the plots that could come from this world and these characters because I want more. I had a great time and I would like to stay and see more. I definitely feel I should have tabbed certain passages from here because there were some really cute things that I loved, but I can't find them and I can't even think exactly what they were because it was a while ago now. So if you enjoy a middle grade, I absolutely recommend this one. I think you're going to have a great time. I really loved the concept and everything explored, and it just felt there was a really good sense of things were at stake. There was a lot at stake in this book, but at the same time it was quite cozy as well. So take what you will from that one. And finally, another book that I had on my what am I in the mood for that I also wanted to read, and I'm so pleased I did manage to, is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, which is her first book in the David trilogy, an adult epic fantasy. I've been highly anticipating this one. I have heard nothing but good and glowing things about it, bar one. But the hype was not wrong. I loved this. I was so drawn into this world. I was intrigued by what was going on. I was constantly going, so whose side am I on? I mean, that's quite terrible what happened to them, so I definitely have sympathy for them, but then that's equally terrible, and so I definitely have sympathy for them, and oh, what do I do? It was fascinating, just feeling quite lost in this world, not knowing what the best thing to do was, seeing how much was at stake, seeing how much everyone could lose. The politicking in here was so good. The characters in here are so fascinating, watching them come together, watching them learn more about each other. It was just quite thrilling. And then you've got the magic aspect side of it all, and different characters getting frustrated with different things, but then you talk to them and you find out why they're trying to do this and what it means to them, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe you should try harder. But then you're like, oh, but is that actually the right choice? Do we want to be doing this? Should we be putting our time and effort into this? There's just so much in here. There's just so much in this book, and I just had such a good time. I can't unpack it any more than that because I'd have to talk for a really long time and go into spoilers. And actually, I've read a lot more, not from the series yet, but I have read a lot more books, and my memory recall is not on point. So I would have to refresh my memory quite a lot, which would take a lot of time. But just know that I found this fantastic. I know it works for some fantasy readers, but not for others. I don't know why. I know some people have found kind of the romantic aspect off-putting, but I don't think it's that strong in here at all. I suppose there is, but it's really sub. I think it's very subplot. This is not a fantasy romance at all. It's very much a fantasy with some subplots. It's very much an adult fantasy. It feels very this feels like there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of layers to it. It's a really thoroughly thought out world. There's a lot of build up in here. There is a lot of lore, there is a lot of history that needs unpacking, there is a lot of hurt, what's the word I'm looking for, different factions of people in here. They need a good diplomat, really. If anyone has got diplomatic skills, get yourself to David Bad. They're gonna need you. And then it started going off in all directions I wasn't expecting it to, and then we've ended, and I'm just like, that is me with my mouth open doing a sort of a what is going on face. So I managed to restrain myself from picking up the second book because there's other books that I need to give my attention to, and there's part of me that's like, I can't race through this because I'm enjoying it so much. I don't want to race through it. I want to like be able to sit on it and be thinking about what could happen. But there we go, that is my final one. So here's all the 9 books that I read in June. It felt like a real mixture. It felt like I had so many different things going on in there, and I had a great time with my reading. So yeah, it's been such a delight to actually talk to you finally about them. I didn't want to ignore my June because I feel all these books really need a good chat about. So thanks for sticking around and talking with me. Feel free to let me know what you read in June or what you are currently reading in August. All is good. Please get chatting in the comments. Have you got any opinions about any of these books? I would love to hear all about them. Happy reading, everyone.